Hello, I'm Jon Hammant, and you are watching the Clouds Therapist channel.
Hello and welcome to the Cloud Therapist Shorts. I'm Richard Simon. This is going to be a talk on the top 5 tech predictions for 2024, coming directly from Jon Hammant. It's a pleasure to welcome Jon back again to the channel. Jon is the head of compute for EMEA at AWS. Jon, how are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. Very nice to be back on, actually, Richard.
Excellent. Yeah, good to have you back on. So let's get cracking with your top 5 predictions for the year. And let's start with the first one. Let's go for it.
Yeah, sounds good. So one of the things I see definitely happening through 2024, I think large language models are going to start, or large AI models are going to start to do the same for video as they have for text and picture in 2023. And I think that's going to be an amazing thing in terms of content, in terms of how people learn, how people view things. And I see that change happening really, really quickly. So in the same way now that I can go on and I can use one of the numerous image generators, I can generate, anything that I want.
Yeah.
I would make a definite prediction, but by December this year, I'll be able to turn around and say, I would like a video of a snowman dancing with a nice, colorful background, waving and saying, hello, Jon. And I think I'll be able to type that in and it will pop out pretty much to real time.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a really, really interesting thing in terms of media, in terms of entertainment, in terms of the way that we adopt that. And I see that going really quickly, actually, really, really quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be quite it has as you said, it has a wide impact, right? It's kind of, as you said, it's kind of production, and people kind of want just to do their own videos or whatever. So just on that sort of LLM aspect of it, just very quickly, how do you think kind of enterprises are going to be able to adopt AI this year?
Yeah, definitely something we see happening at the moment. So I think AI is going through a real change where the amount of people I think that are surreptitiously, they're logging on, they're using different LLMs of all kinds by themselves, probably having some kind of warning message saying they're not supposed to be doing this at work, and they continue to doing it. I suspect it's happening all
Yeah.
over the place when people I talk to. I think this year most enterprises will have a strategy as to how you adopt that into the workplace, and some of that will be
Right.
consumed via some of their existing SaaS providers. Everything from seeing some of the Salesforce Einstein stuff I think is very good, down into offerings like Amazon Q, for example, our specific LLM bot that sits around it. But I think it really will come to a point where enterprises have a strategy to stop that data leakage. I think also people have realized the key underpinning of AIML is really data. Data is the most important thing of all of this, as much as the models matter. And I think a lot of enterprises will work on how can they get their own data into the model. The more that you can have your data, the more you have it specific to an enterprise, the better, whilst making sure that that data isn't leaking out and isn't being trained to other people. So I think it's going to be a really interesting year for that kind of adoption side of it. And I think, for consultancies, for cloud providers, for software companies, it will all be by this time next year. I suspect most companies, you'll kind of almost be able to go in and look at the specific strategy and the specific chatbot that comes in.
Cool. Yeah, and if any of our viewers want to have a quick checkout of what Amazon Q is all about, look at the reInvent video that I did with Jon. That was a review that we did as well. So that was I think had a little bit more information about Amazon Q as well. Okay, what's your second one?
So sustainability. So I think actually it's really nice to see. I think we're seeing more and more sustainability being a key pillar of architectural designs. And I think that's happening in a couple of different key ways. One, when people are designing systems, they're designing from the ground up to be sustainable. So that's using things like ARM, using more efficient CPU methods, making sure that there's not as much that rot data, the data that you never use effectively, but then also looking at things like the following where low cost power is, making sure regions are spinning into things like, for us, we've launched a lot of a large region in Stockholm, which is provided by a lot of very, very green energy. And I think that's really going to start to come into architectural designs on one side. But then I think and I think some of that's already started. I think the other real thing that I see happening is companies asking for the downstream impact of effectively sustainability that's happening. So, if at the moment I might say, for example, I'm a large company and I start to use an API from a third party. At the moment, I'll just often think about cost, or I'll think about availability. I can see over the course of this year, the next question will be is, you know, how much CO2 are you using per API call? And I think that'll be something that will come in very quickly with the industry, because in the end of the day, imagine, for example, I'm a large FSI customer
Yeah.
company. You know, if I want to be able to turn around to my customers and say, for your bank account, you are consuming this much carbon. This is your carbon footprint or your sustainability footprint of water and other things. I need to be able to understand all of the downstream systems on that
Right.
side and actually what they're requiring. And I think that's going to become a hard requirement or more. And that's a hard thing to do at the moment.
Sure.
That's something. So I think there's going to be a lot of change, and a lot of progress in there, and that's just a good thing for everyone, quite honestly.
Yeah. So quick question on that. So we've seen things like, chaos engineering kind of being integrated into software. Could we see kind of sustainability engineering being actually included in our code in the future?
I completely think it is. I mean, I think that's a fantastic. I love the term sustainability engineering.
So you heard it here first, Jon. So copyright cloud therapist.
I feel I'm gonna reuse that, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So you definitely, one thing we're seeing at the moment, and there's interesting progress in it. It's giving options around sustainable scheduling. So say, for example, I'm going to run a large task on systems. One of the things that we've been thinking about for a long time is, how would you turn around and say, actually, I want to execute that in the most sustainable way? Because often, actually, the most sustainable way is often the cheapest. So you've got this kind of double in mind. So I think actually designing things from the ground up, that we and other cloud providers and other services in general,
Yeah.
you have that, I want to do this in a sustainable way, and design that into engineers. I think that's going to be a absolutely huge thing that I see a company.
Fantastic. And your third one, Jon?
Yeah, so AI. So back to this.
Ooh.
I think AI working as a co-worker. So some of the really stuff that we're seeing at the moment is,
that's an interesting angle.
it's how you
Yeah.
treat AI as the thing that sits across you. And I think it's really, for me, it's really interesting. If I look at chess, I think chess is a fantastic example of the way the world works. And if you look at the best chess players at the moment on the planet, so currently, so for ages it was people, yay, our wet beings did well at chess for quite some time, until Kasparov and Deep Blue. Then it was AIs for a very long period of time that effectively been the winners. At the moment now, if you want to find the best chess players on the planet, they're what's known as correspondence or chimera chess players. And that's a combination of a person doing the overall strategy of the game of chess,
Right.
working in conjunction with a chess engine like Stockfish, some of the other ones, doing the tactics and giving the short next move effectively. What I think is going to happen overall in business is that's going to happen more and more. So, if I think how I manage the business, I will start to put in the strategy of that business management overall, of where I think the higher directions. And I think having AI working as a co-worker to put in those tactical things. We've done some stuff, really interesting stuff, I think, in terms of pair programming. I think it will go with this. I think people will get to a point where, pair programming for folk that didn't remember it a while back, two people literally sharing the same keyboard, one person commenting, going between it. I think what we'll see increasingly is AI will be that pair programmer that comes in and almost, says, maybe you should do it like this. Maybe it puts in some testing around it. And I think this whole concept of having AI almost as separate team members that sit alongside you is going to come really, really, really quickly, actually.
Cool. Yeah, I remember when I was at IBM, I was at an exhibition or something, we were doing a conference, and we actually had a live connection to Deep Blue just to demo for customers who were visiting us on the stand. And during the breaks, I had to go playing a match with it, and I think I was checkmated within 10 moves or something.
I think it's really interesting. So we've launched something recently called Code Catalyst, and there's other things that are available as well, and that's really interesting. So if you're going to change your code, you go in and you type in, for an API, for example, maybe you want to add a date field on it. So you literally type in the issue that you would like. So I would like to add a date field on this API.
Right.
It goes on, it opens an issue tracking ticket. It goes into the code itself, and it starts to just add that code in. So it straight away does makes a branch, adds the additional code in, adds the check-in, and you come around and you basically look at the merge. Is it right? The reality is, I think there's going to be, for a long time, there'll be a human element of that interaction to make sure it's right. But a lot of the time, and I've started to almost pair program with the help of Code Whisperer and with the help of Claude to an extent, running on Bedrock. A lot of the time, actually, what the machine is suggesting is right. So I think doing that and helping developers being the thing that sits alongside them, I think is going to happen really, really quickly, actually.
Cool. Excellent. All right. So let's move on to your fourth one, please.
Yeah, so HPC. So one of my favorite subjects are high
Ah,
performance computing. So at the moment, there's been a real change in the way HPC works over the last couple of years. Traditionally, high performance computing was very much an on-prem thing. We're seeing that go into the cloud through 2024. I predict that will go into the cloud faster, bigger
mm,
than ever before, and the underlying change in HPC will start to impact people's lives more. One of the key things that I love working on are pieces like drug discovery or some of the material science
yeah.
pieces. And those are places where the traditional HPC model of you're going to have to spec. So if I wanted to look at a new drug, for example,
Yeah.
specifically, say for something I had, you need to spend huge amounts of money and also time building these giant on-prem setups effectively
Right. Yeah.
just to go off and do one thing. The ability that people have now to burst out unbelievably large, unbelievably broad, very quickly is completely the way that's changed the way that science works. It's interesting. We spend a lot of our time. I'm very happy get to spend a lot of time with different scientists. I hadn't realized how close science and computer science have become. Most
Right.
scientists,
Yeah.
a lot of their day, they'll sit in Jupyter Notebook. That is the effectively the interface around it,
Yeah.
and the ability to use these very large amounts of compute for a very efficient price,
Right.
spin it up, check something, spin it back down. I think will have huge impacts on everything from drug discovery to weather modeling to effectively the way that we build houses and we build materials. And I think I would, if I want to take a prediction on it, I think off the back of this, we'll see some interesting bits of science happen over the course of the year that would not have happened without these changes being possible.
I agree, and I think when we were exchanging kind of on your top five, you said I liked your statement. You said changing the underlying framework for science. I think that really made a lot of sense. So that was a good
Oh,
point.
so what I really want to see, and I have a for people that know me, I've talked about this probably overly. I want to see almost the DevOps for science moment turn up. So if
Ah,
you
yeah.
at the moment, so if I'm going to publish a scientific paper, it takes about 3 years to go from me
Mm,
having the theory to peer review to people kind of accepting it as science. What's been really interesting with stuff like archive.org,
mm,
and the change in that pace of science has started to really expand in certain areas, specifically around some of the bits of AI and machine learning, where people are just publishing more and more preprints.
right,
What I really want to see is that whole way that science works change. Realistically, you should be able to trace the scientific theories in a paper in the same way that I can for a piece of code of looking
right.
at what the dependencies are, and I think that's one of the things that combining the increasing digitalization of science,
Mm,
including the increasing flexibility of using large scale resources, I just think that's going to have a real change. All we need to do is speed up how quickly science discovers by a small percentage, by 5 by 10%, and
mm.
then this kind of law of accelerating returns and this law of compound interest starts to kick in, and we start to be able to do some really cool stuff in short periods of time. So I'm really excited about that.
Excellent. Okay, and your last one, please.
Yeah, final one. Spatial computing. I think it's going to be one of these things that really surprises people by how good it is. I think people have seen VR for quite some
Mm,
time, and I mean, I had a DK1 dev kit. I had I remember trying a virtuality back on a A4000 in the Trocadero many moons ago. So I've been following this for quite some
yeah.
time. I think most people would agree VR hasn't really done where we thought it would.
Mm,
From what I've seen, I've had a Magic Leap 2 we've been doing some interesting stuff with, and we've got a Quest 3. I think AR is going to be very interesting. And I think
mm,
this concept of spatial computing, where people have headsets that are comfortable enough that they can spend all day in them, that starts to be their major interaction. I think there's going to be far more change in that than people realize. I am really looking forward to the launch of the Vision Pro. I think that's going to be a
mm,
real watershed moment that, as weird as it sounds, I think people are looking at, and it's very hard to understand, I think, the impact that it will have at the moment without people experimenting. And or I think there's
right.
some
Yeah.
we're I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna blow people away in terms of its performance. And I think that's going to be an area where over the course of the year, by this time next year, there will have been a huge rush to creating spatial apps we'll be getting to the later iterations of some of the hardware that will, I think, come down in price very, very dramatically. And I think that will have a much larger impact on things than people realize. Yeah, this time next year, as much as everyone's talked about AI over the past year, I think there'll be far more buzz coming around the side of spatial. And I think it's an area that people probably haven't realized there's going to be that much progress in, but I think will happen amazingly quickly. So I absolutely can't wait for it. Hey, if you enjoyed watching this, please subscribe to support the channel. Thanks very much.
Okay, so thank you very much for doing this talk. I've really enjoyed kind of going through all that with you as always. The predictions will be listed in the description of the video. We'll try and kind of include some of the links of the stuff that Jon mentioned as well. Also, do let us know what your predictions are as well. I'd love to hear from you guys and kind of maybe put something in the comments of the video as well. That'll be quite cool. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching this talk. If you enjoyed the content, please comment, share, like, and subscribe to support the channel. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. See you next time.